On this episode of Tough Garage, I hump the bonnet. So a while back I managed to get my hands on a TCTD 6-cylinder bonnet hump. It was from a rusted out bonnet, so don't worry, I didn't ruin a good bonnet. Somebody had already cut a little slot in the front of the hump. I welded it back over and smoothed it off just as it would be originally. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to use this hump on the bonnet. No one's ever done this before, especially on a TE TF style bonnet. The shape seems to be ideal, but the shape of the hump I mean. So what I need to do now is check complete dimensions of the hump. So find the center point, the center line, and where the curves of the hump start to allow sort of the extremes of the hump, and start measuring from there, get my cuts that go around the actual hump, so the actual cutout of the hump itself to be perfect on each edge before placing it on the TF bonnet that I've got, to see how it all sort of suits and fits on there. So you know, you'll see the TE TF bonnet have a small little hump of their own, or a profile. It has to sort of suit that shape. You can't be putting a hump on there, in my opinion, that doesn't suit. I've seen the BABF ones and FG style ones done on TE TF bonnets. They're a completely different shape. They look more triangular in a way. This is more a rectangular shape, which should suit a lot better. Like I said, those BABF ones, in my opinion, they do not suit. They look great as in the hump itself. The shape of the actual hump is great, but the shape of the hump in the sense of you know, being triangular or rectangular and suiting the shape of the bonnet that we're using is way off. So I think this might be suitable more to this style, but until I cut it and get it all perfect and find those center lines and everything, I won't know. So I'm going to start by doing that and see how we go. My cut line will be 10mm before the start of the profile of the bonnet hump. I've allowed that 10mm so that the original bonnet skin and the bonnet hump skin, when it was actually on a bonnet, both perfectly meet flush. So by allowing that extra 10mm and not cutting on the actual start of the profile of the bonnet hump, you're not having to then weld right on that edge and grind and then create that small smooth profile that was made from factory with bog. So you get those two perfectly flat flush areas, weld on them, clean all that up, and then the actual profile of the bonnet hump stays as it was originally. It's oh so close, but this part here needs to curve down, obviously, as you can see. So what I'm going to do, where this profile here sort of starts, I'm going to give it a slice across there and try and get it to curve down a little bit more, just so it sort of meets all the way along and then re-weld that area. But pretty good. The actual shape of it, you can see from here, is ideal. It follows this, bonnet line or body line of the bonnet there. It's not bad at all. So after a little bit of slicing, bending and manipulating, a little bit of panel beating, the profile is perfect. Okay, here goes. If only auto salon was still around. Alright, so a tip to pass on to you guys. What I've done here, I've just got a 1mm steel ruler and I've wedged it in between because I've got a 1mm gap all the way around the two panels that need to be welded together. Now sometimes they won't sit perfectly flush. You can either use those little clamps that go all the way through and hold the panel flush, or magnets and stuff like that, which is what I'm doing. So just put the ruler in between and then lever either this way if you need to lift that panel, or the other way if you need to lift this panel. You can use the magnet to stabilize it, and it'll hold it perfectly flush at the spot where you want to do your little spot weld or tack, and tack it, and it holds it pretty much in place. You'll have to do it in a few other areas, like see there. I'll have to lower that, or beat it a little bit to soften it up and get it down and get it to the level that it needs to be at this. So make sure you're constantly checking this, that it's not caving in. because it's not framed everywhere, and make that meet this, not vice versa. Okay. Okay, what a mission that was. 2 days worth of welding and grinding. So I've nearly finished the bonnet skin of welding and grinding. The next thing to do is to muck around with the ribbing or the supporting at the bottom of the bonnet. I'll show you now. So these ribs or supports that support the bonnet skin, they need to be modified. Obviously you can see the massive gap that is left from the bonnet hump. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut them 10 mil away from the actual weld line, so a little bit further back, and that'll give me area to finish the weld of the bonnet skin and finish dressing the welds as well on both sides, because we've got a little bit of penetration that's come through. Obviously that's what we sort of want, so it fills up the gap nicely. So we'll cut them along here, finish the bonnet skin welding and grinding on both sides. We'll have to smooth this off. There's a little bit of warping on the corners here, very hard to eliminate, but we'll be able to panel beat that a bit better once we get these ribbing and supports off, and then we'll have to reshape them somehow. We'll work that out as we go and put it back on so it looks like factory. was a massive amount of work over multiple days. You've got to go slowly, otherwise you end up killing yourself. You've got to do the welding slowly, then you've got to do the grinding slowly, do it bit by bit. It takes a very long time, but the results are excellent. I'm really, really happy with it. So as you saw at the very end there, I needed a little bit of panel beating, especially in these corners. Even though I radialised the corners as much as I could, because you should never weld a straight corner because all the heat sort of builds up in that corner and adds to the chances of warping. It's still warped a little bit, so in this area here, need a little bit of easy beating and shrinking on both corners. The front wasn't too bad, but still needed a bit of beating and lifting up. But the rest of it was good. So minimal warping and everything, but you've got to take your time. You really got to take your time with the welding. I was doing 4 little spots at a time, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then move on, cool it straight away, move on, maybe 10 centimeters away, do it again, and so on, and then even then, after I do 2 rounds of the hump, I'd come round and grind again. As you saw, it just takes forever. But you want to do it slowly, otherwise you've got a hell of a lot of panel beating left to be done. The ribbing's been cut off, so I'm going to leave this video as a part 1. Part 2 will be the ribs that I make, so I'll be modifying these and adding them back onto the underside of the bonnet so it looks like factory. It doesn't need the support, it's pretty strong, but to make it all look like a factory piece, I want to add the ribbing back again, plus a little bit of support. But yeah, these will need curving and shaping differently, so I'll have to splice and dice these as well and make them suit and fit. Sorry for the massive gap in videos, guys, but I've been going through old man stuff, having strokes and hip replacements and that sort of stuff. So I hope you enjoyed that video. On to the next one. See you next time.